Andy Pollin, Chris Nockey, Steve Czaban. Auto racing fans, not too late to sign up for Papa John's Auto Racing Pick'em, presented by Richmond International Raceway. Weekly prizes of $50 Papa John's gift certificates. Pick the winners each week, and you could be one too. Sign up now at ESPN980.com. Nockey will actually be in at 5 o'clock. We're joined now by Jimmy Halsell, who works for FootballOutsiders.com, former capologist with the Redskins, which we'll get to in just a moment. But we've been throwing around the term uncapped year quite a bit as we look at what will be a salvage mission for this Washington Redskins team in the offseason. And in case you're not familiar, if there is no collective bargaining agreement in place by March 2010, would be an uncapped year in the NFL. So we wanted to find out what that was all about. So we've got Jimmy Halsell with us from FootballOutsiders.com. First of all, why outsiders instead of insiders?
I don't know. Actually, in talking to Aaron, who is the founder of Football Outsiders, he jokingly said when I came on board that they're increasingly becoming more of insiders than outsiders. But that was kind of how that website was founded. It's just some guys who come from very deep statistical backgrounds, who are just huge football fans, starting their website and creating these innovative statistics. And now it's gotten to a point where they get people like me who have actually worked in the business, on the site.
What years were you with the Redskins?
I was there the past 2 seasons, so I was there the 07 and the 08 season.
Okay.
And what they do, lock you in a room with a calculator and a green eye shade and said, all right, keep an eye on the numbers.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I sat in a windowless office there at Redskins Park crunching numbers. In my 2 years that I was there, my first season there, we did LaRon Landry's rookie contract. My second year there, we did all of our second-rounders. We also did the Chris Cooley extension, the Clinton Portis renegotiation. So, definitely crunched a ton of numbers for 2 years there.
They say, hey, we're throwing in $100 million for Hainsworth. Hope that won't be a problem.
It's one of those deals where, you kind of get your marching orders and it's like, make it happen.
Really? So did you ever speak up and say, look, I think this is too rich for this guy?
Yeah, well, the thing about that is that at the end of the day, the powers that be over there, they're going to, make the decision they want to make. And
so you just tell them, all right, you're like the finance guy at a car dealership. You're like, all right, you want to do it over 7 years, it'll be this much per month.
Exactly.
You want to do it over 5 years, this much. If you're not going to keep him for more than 2, you're going to have to pay a lump sum of this, da-da-da-da-da.
Exactly. So you can give them all the facts that you want, and you might have your own, opinion as to kind of what the wise salary cap decision is. But
they don't care about your opinion.
At the end of the day, you're not the one pulling the trigger on the player acquisition.
Talking to Jimmy Halsell, FootballOutsiders.com. We've talked about the possibility of an uncapped year and the ability of the Redskins to get rid of some really crappy contracts that they have and not feel the hit of the salary cap. Is that accurate? Is that the way that would work?
Yeah, what would an uncapped year look like?
Yeah, as it specifically relates to Washington, what the uncapped year would present are a couple of different things. One, let's say you have a Clinton Portis who you want to, let go. Mm-hmm. What the ramification there is that Clinton currently is scheduled to have a $10.7 million cap number in 2010. If you terminate his contract in 2010, he then counts for dead money, meaning money that counts on your cap for a player that's no longer on the team. His dead money number would be $10.4 million next year.
Right.
But you can easily take that on because you don't have a salary cap.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That, so it makes a decision like that a little more easier for you to deal with.
How much bonus money does Portis yet have to get? Like what's strung out in the future?
Like cash-wise or in terms of just money that's accounted for in the future years?
Like cash-wise, what is still coming that we have to – how many more payments on him, like a car, is what I'm looking for?
Yeah, cash-wise, he doesn't have that much money because a lot of his money's come in the form of signing bonus that has been paid, in that year that he received.
Okay,
that.
I don't mean that. I mean cap.
What's
the cap charge strung out in the future?
Yeah, from an accounting standpoint, you're going to have at least $8 million come into next year that's out in future years. So that's the bonus money that's prorated into future years that then comes into the 2010 year that counts against your salary cap.
What happens if Samuels retires as expected?
Yeah, the thing about Chris is that he only has one more year left on his deal anyway, 2010. So it's not going to be a significant cap hit for the team.
Okay.
By him, retiring, as unfortunate as that would be under the current circumstances.
Right.
But another ramification of the uncapped year as it relates to the Redskins is that, you've got to make a decision on Jason Campbell, Carlos Rogers, Rocky McIntosh, Kedrick Golston, because if there is a salary cap in 2010, all four of those guys become unrestricted free agents.
Right.
Whereas if there isn't a new collective bargaining agreement by 2010, those guys instead become restricted free agents, which actually probably helps you in the sense that, okay, for Jason Campbell, he may not be, he's probably not your quarterback of the future, but you could probably re-sign him under a restricted free agent tender of, say, less than $2 million to be that bridge quarterback to the young guy that you probably end up drafting this year.
So that's like an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, that's if he doesn't finally demand a trade, which I think if he's not leaving this offseason, he will finally step up and
he's got to have
speak up
takers
and say,
for a trade. He's got to be
Right.
teams interested in him.
Well, I mean, or someone willing to sign him as an RFA.
Yeah, but then the good thing about if somebody signs him as an RFA, and particularly with the Redskins, then you're going to get draft compensation in return.
Right.
And if you're going to try to rebuild your team the right way, which is through the draft, then you need as many draft picks as you can get.
What is the status on Santana Moss?
Santana, he has money out in the future years as well. There are a few guys, particularly a lot of our veteran players, the Andre Carters of the world, the Randy Thomases of the world, Santanas of the world, who, we've redone their contracts over and over again when I was there, and we pushed money out. So with Santana, as a matter of fact, his contract was redone in May, and that helped free up some space for them to release John Jansen. But in terms of what his cap situation is, if you were to release him, say, for 2010, his cap number would probably be about the same as if he were still on the team.
Jimmy, if there is a salary cap in 2010, and if they do have a deal in place, which would mean that the last year of this collective bargaining agreement would carry over, so you'd be still under the terms of this particular CBA, how much cap trouble would the Redskins be in?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Eric Schaefer, who is the lead negotiator over at the Redskins and is the kind of the mastermind behind managing their cap, he's done a great job of basically taking into consideration, okay, what if there is a CBA come 2010, or what if there's not one, and has managed the budgets accordingly, under both of those scenarios. So if there is a cap, and they don't necessarily know what that number is going to be, they've planned accordingly to be able to say, okay, when we signed Albert Hainsworth, we needed to be able to take his cap number and be able to account for that if there is a salary cap. So what if we, had to do that, and what if we have to let go of Clinton? Well, you're able to take on his $10.4 million dead money hit, but you planned accordingly with the way you've structured, whether it's a LaRon Landry contract or any of your other contracts, so that you can fit it within whatever the salary cap is in 2010, whether it's $136 million or what have you.
Okay, so they're not in dire straits.
They're not in dire straits. I mean, they planned accordingly over there, so it's not going to be a situation where there's going to be a fire sale at Redskins Park that's purely cap related. Okay. Now there might be a fire sale over there just because they're trying to turn over the roster.
Exactly. Now, I mean, as creative as you guys have been in finding money, stringing things out in the future, hasn't necessarily translated into winning football.
No, not at all. I mean, that's one of the things where, the philosophy behind building a roster, you have to take the salary cap into consideration. It's just part of, building a team. It's not like the 80s where you could just buy up all the best players or get a veteran-laden team like in the glory days, under Joe Gibbs.
But I think my point, though, Jimmy, is that even if you found a creative way to get all of your roster paid really nicely and fit them under the cap, you now have a roster of guys who are all paid pretty nicely, and that affects motivation and performance on the field.
It does. And that's another reason why if you're, say, the Indianapolis Colts, or you're the Minnesota Vikings, or you're the Philadelphia Eagles, who tend to build through the draft, when you draft young players who haven't gotten that lucrative second contract yet, those guys are motivated to play at a high level. And so because they're motivated and they're highly skilled, but more importantly, they're cheap labor.
That's what you need.
You can get a lot of them, too.
At the end of the day, it's about cheap labor.
Exactly. Yeah. Jimmy, thanks very much. The website is footballoutsiders.com. He's got a column this week about the top 10 offensive tackles, their contracts, and how they're paid. Very interesting reading. Most of them, by the way, under the age of 30.
Yep. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks very much.
Won't be the last time either. Thank you.
That's Jimmy Halsell. Used to be the capologist for the Redskins. Coming up, a special correspondent from Bloomington, Indiana, on Bobby Knight saying no thank you to Hall of Fame induction. Don't go away.